Hello everyone and welcome to the first Citybound update since a pretty long time. I'm in a new place, slightly higher, with a very nice and inspiring view to the city. And today I will announce to you a feature that Michael and me have been thinking about a lot. Before that I worked on some other background and architecture type stuff that is kind of hard to show, but 1 week ago I set myself the challenge to implement this feature, or at least a very basic version of it, within 1 week that I can show you, so you can understand what general direction Citybound is going in, because this feature will actually be a pretty big change. And we were inspired to think about this because people actually kept asking for it, and if people keep asking for something, then maybe you should consider that it's a good idea, and this idea is planning mode. So the basic idea of planning mode is that instead of immediately building something in your city, like a road, you first create a plan for it. This is exactly what people kept asking us for, because they wanted an opportunity to kind of plan out and sketch out their ideas and modify them before they set them into action. And in most other city building games, you just immediately get a road in your city when you draw it, and you can't really change it. You have to erase it, maybe even delete some buildings and so on. So this is kind of the basic motivation for why you want planning mode. And this form of planning mode, where you can first draw a couple roads, modify them, is the first thing that I will show you. And then we will have a look at what kind of powerful opportunities you can get if you take this idea further. So I'm in a new flat and I didn't have time to set up my full PC yet, so I decided to record this update like this and to deliver it directly from our kitchen to your hearts. I can, however, show off one small thing here that I couldn't otherwise, and that is that Citybound already supports multi-touch gestures on the trackpads of MacBooks, for example, so I can use 2 fingers to scroll around my view and pinch to zoom. But anyways, let's zoom in on the monitor to see everything a little better. To start a new plan, we can simply click anywhere and start drawing roads like we're used to. But when finishing a road, instead of it immediately becoming a real existing road, it stays there as well a plan. And what I can now do is add additional roads, which will also be added to the plan. Now in this video I will ask you to imagine a couple things that don't really work yet because I didn't get them finished for the update. For example, I won't connect this plan with the real world. Interactions between plans and the real world don't work yet, but they will soon, of course. So we'll just focus on the plan itself. So far this hasn't been terribly interesting. We just drew a bunch of roads, but where it starts to get interesting is if we zoom in on this plan, we can see these handles appear on the roads that we've just drawn. Let me zoom in some more. And what we can do now is we can actually grab them and move them around, and the plan will adapt accordingly. And the intersections between roads will also adapt accordingly. Not only that, but for example, I can also select multiple points like him, and move both of them at the same time. And again, the plan will adjust accordingly. So now you understand how basic plans can be useful and nice to use, but what if you take it further? As I said, Michael and me were thinking, what if you make planning mode the only mode that Citybound has? If everything that you want to create has to start with a plan. That might sound annoying for smaller stuff like just a single road, but rest assured that there the user interface will be really quick and simple, so it won't really make a difference drawing it immediately. But where this becomes really interesting is for large plans. Like let's say you're planning a whole airport or a whole harbor district or a station, or how to widen the central road of your city or something like that. And for something like that to work, first you need multiple plans at the same time, so you can kind of work on different projects in your city at the same time and plan them out. It would be really nice if for each plan you could see how much the approximated cost for that plan would be, including, for example, all the structures that have to be demolished first, how much it costs to create the new structures and so on. Then we realized that it's really interesting if you can combine different plans together, maybe even save a plan into a file and share it with someone. That's actually how we could implement something like the assets in city skylines, and I will talk about more of that in a second. But we kept getting more and more ideas for plans, and most importantly, you can do a lot of things in plans that you can't do in existing structure of your city. Like, you can't really undo the building of a road, especially if there are already buildings connected to it, for example. You can't really just move a road somewhere else. But if you have a plan, you can move everything around, change everything however you want. You can combine and recombine different plans, parts of different plans, and you can even have stuff like undo and redo. And I will show you now how I already implemented some of these more advanced features, and especially how nice plans can be to use if they have a really nice user interface, where I also created a basic version of that. So let's look at that next. So let's look at some more advanced things. For example, let's say we want to take this whole part on the left here and kind of rotate it like this. I already showed you that you can move multiple control points. Let's zoom in so we can see them. But you can also rotate them, and at the same time let me show you a nice way to quickly select multiple of them. So what, instead of like clicking them individually, I can just draw a selection outline like this. Now all 4 of them are selected, and I can now grab this direction control point here to rotate all of them around this point. Of course, I can use these direction control points also for single points to rotate just the direction of the road there. To take this further, let's take a look at another plan that I created earlier. Let me switch to the other plan. So you can see I also created something down here. And I might not even want to make this plan a reality, but for some reason I really like this 3 road intersection here in the middle, and I'd like to have it in my other plan. So what I can do is I can zoom in and again select it. Now all of these points are selected. I can copy it using Command C, switch to my other plan, and then hit Command V for paste, and then choose a location where I want to paste it in, let's say here. So now it is part of my plan, but as you can see the angles don't quite line up, so all of these points are still selected. I can use this direction control point to align it better to my plan, for example like this, and then I can even connect them up like this. Now, for example, City Skylines has these theme assets where you can kind of paste other people's intersections and all kinds of creations into your city. And for Citybound, I want to have the same but more powerful. Let me switch to a third plan which contains only a roundabout. I also created that earlier, but we could imagine, for example, that you got it off of Steam or loaded it from a file or whatever. And I would also like to have this in my other plan. So again, what I can do is just select the whole thing, copy it, switch to my first plan, and then paste it. For example, let's paste it here. And I already showed you that I can rotate the whole thing now. So let's rotate it like this, move it like this, And now we can really start to change things. And the nice thing is this is not a fixed asset like in City Skylines that I can't change anymore. I can of course also change its control points. And whoops, this is a great opportunity to show another feature, undo. We have full undo and redo. I can move everything here around. For example, let's select all of them and move this whole thing down here. And whoops, line everything up. We can connect it up now. And again, if we want to change something, we can still do that. For example, we could move the point where this connects to the roundabout. We could change the angle that it comes in from. Slightly glitchy still, because I basically rewrote the whole intersection code to support stuff like that. But now it looks mostly fine. So I think you can imagine how this is a much more powerful way of combining existing assets, copy pasting stuff between plans and so on. And again, to show off undo and redo, let's undo the complete plan. You can kind of use that to see it in time lapse, and redo the whole plan. And of course I could also do stuff like copy something from a later version of the plan into an earlier version of the plan and then continue with something else, or all kinds of stuff like that.
So the last idea for today is the idea of changing plans at different levels of detail, at different levels of scale. Because if you have something as complex as a city and you have plans that change that city, you of course want to be able to both change structures at a very, very big scale and move around a whole neighborhood, for example, in your plan. But you also want to be able to have very fine-grained control and kind of zoom in on an intersection and really customize it however you want. And it's of course very challenging to come up with a user interface that supports all of that, but also for that I had an idea and I implemented a basic version of it. Let's have a look at how it looks like for a very simple example.
One basic example for controlling plans on different scales of detail is splitting apart the two sides of a road. And to be able to do that, let's zoom in, and that's all we've seen so far. But if we zoom in even further, you can notice that this control point here splits into two smaller ones. See, I zoom out, it's one big control point. I zoom in, it becomes two smaller ones. And I can now actually drag just one of them, and you can see that I can split the whole road apart like this. And you can see the intersection adapted. If I add a new road over here, it will also intersect correctly. And I can also drag this road apart, change the direction of this one. And you could imagine this going way further, that you could split off each individual lane, and I will probably implement that in the future. But this just goes to show how useful controlling a plan at different levels of detail can be, and how powerful it can be.
So today I already showed you a couple of aspects of plans and how they could work and will work in the game. Next for plans is interaction with existing road structure. Then a whole other topic for plans will be, of course, how zoning is incorporated with that. I want zones to, of course, also be parts of plans, and the shapes of zones to adapt if you modify roads, for example. And that will be really interesting and challenging, but if I manage to implement what I have in mind, I think it will be very, very useful, nice to use, and also very powerful. So I hope you're as excited about planning mode, which will be the main mode of playing Citybound, as I am. And yeah, I hope to be able to show you more about that soon. Also, I will continue to work on the economy and about some more underlying architectural stuff. And I'm not quite sure when or how you will hear about all of that, but I'll try to keep you informed as best as possible. So thank you all for watching, take care, and see you all soon. Bye bye. Finally, let's try applying our plan to the real world. I have no idea if this will work because we have a lot of crazy intersections going on here, and I don't know if my code will be happy with that, but if I hit Command Enter, it should, and it didn't. So let's forget about that. You can kind of see, if I remove the plan, what it created, and it really doesn't like some of these strange intersections yet, but that's all stuff that I can sort out.